That Scott Joplin serenade is called Solace, which is a perfect title for this week's service. Grief is a solitary journey. No one but you knows how great the hurt is. No one but you can know the gaping hole left in your life when someone you know has died. And no one but you can mourn the silence that was once filled with laughter and song. It is the nature of love and of death to touch every person in a totally unique way. Comfort comes from knowing that people have made the same journey, and solace comes from understanding how others have learned to sing again. The words of the poet Helen Steiner Rice open our gathering this morning. I'm David Dean, a member of Buckman Bridge Unitarian Universalist Church, or as it is acronymically known, BBUUC. Good morning. No, don't just say it to me. Turn to somebody close to you and say good morning to them. Come on. Where do you think you are? Unitarian Universalists believe that each individual is responsible for consciously deciding what to believe. We draw from many sources to find wisdom to support that search for truth and meaning. We find inspiration from the world's religions. We look to the teachings of Jesus as well as the teachings of the Buddha. We draw inspiration from Hebrew scriptures, Christian scriptures, from Hinduism, the Bhagavad Gita, Joni Mitchell. We draw inspiration from earth-centered traditions, which teach us to honor and care for this planet. It's the only one we've got, and it's going to outlive us all, theoretically. So we've got a lot to learn from it. The bottom line is that UUs are not a people who believe that any one tradition or any one spiritual leader has cornered the market on the truth. We believe that there are always new truths to be discovered. We have a living tradition, and I know that because it's right here on the hymnal. We've always been a congregation that has a lot of children. There are many of us in this room who have watched Sydney literally grow up here. And I'm so happy that she's playing for us today. And we are truly blessed to have Chris Jarman as our Director of Lifespan Religious Education. We still do not believe it is safe enough for our kids to meet in their classrooms in the back, but Chris is still sharing the wisdoms of the world for all of us with tales and lessons from the Wonderbox. And here is one now.
Good morning and welcome to the Wonderbox. Let's see what's in our box today. What do you think? Oh, a bottle. I wonder what a bottle has to do with our story. Let's find out.
Once there was a girl, much like any other, whose head was filled with all the curiosities of the world, with thoughts of the stars, with wonder at the sea. She took delight in finding new things, until the day she found an empty chair. Feeling unsure, the girl thought the best thing was to put her heart in a safe place, just for the time being. So she put it in a bottle and hung it around her neck, and that seemed to fix things, at first. Although in truth, nothing was the same. She forgot about the stars and stopped taking notice of the sea. She was no longer filled with all the curiosities of the world and didn't take much notice of anything other than how heavy and awkward the bottle had become. But at least her heart was safe. It might never have occurred to the girl what to do had she not met someone smaller and still curious about the world. There was a time when the girl would have known how to answer her, but not now, not without her heart. And it was right at that moment she decided to get it back out of the bottle. But she didn't know how. She couldn't remember. And nothing seemed to work. The bottle couldn't be broken. It just bounced and rolled right down to the sea. But there it occurred to someone smaller and still curious about the world that she might know a way. And it just so happened she did. The heart was put back where it came from. And the chair wasn't so empty anymore. But the bottle was. The end.
I wonder, where do you see yourself in this story? Have you ever felt like the girl who put her heart in a bottle? I have. Sometimes we all need help to ease our hearts from big feelings of loss, whether it be the passing of someone we love or moving away and not being able to see our friends. Maybe you've lost a favorite toy or outgrown a favorite shirt. For parents, maybe when our kids go off to college. The thing that struck me in the story is that it was gentleness, friendliness, and kindness that led to the success of freeing the girl's heart from the bottle, not the brute force of power tools, hammers, or high walls. May we always remember to be gentle with our hearts. And with this, our story is told. Until the next time.
Every Sunday at the First Unitarian Universalist Society of San Francisco, the congregation speaks these offertory words written by Mary Allen Walden in unison. This church is the community of ourselves. Its energy and resources are our energy and resources. Its wealth is what we share. As we contribute to the life of this community, we affirm our lives within it. Isn't that beautiful? To continue the works and ministries of this church, we will be receiving our offering as you leave the sanctuary via the collection boxes by the front door. If you want to use envelopes, they are in the hymnals beneath the chairs in front of you. You can also use the donate link on our website. I promise we will resume communally passing the plate as soon as we possibly can and continue group singing as well. I promise. But for now, please enjoy Debby Jones singing our traditional offertory hymn, Spirit of Life.
Come unto me, sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion, blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Thank you. It is truly an honor and a pleasure for me to introduce our speaker this morning. Reverend Holly Rowley was ordained through One Spirit Interfaith Seminary in New York City in 2011. She served as worship director at Essentials of Life Holistic Enrichment Center in Hartsville, Ohio, where she co-created and led a weekly interfaith service from 2012 to 2014. Holly has resided in the Boston area for the past 7 years and is currently the owner and master practitioner at Beautiful River Reiki and Shamanic Reiki. Her specialty is assisting clients to move through their grief with laughter and tears. And I can personally vouch for that. You see, I really got to know Reverend Holly in June of 2020. Also in that graduating class at One Spirit was my wife, Reverend Elizabeth Teal. That's where they met. And when Lizzie was in her last week in hospice, Holly jumped on a plane, pandemic be damned, and came down here to help and support us. I will say no more because I don't want to upstage or embarrass her. So, Reverend Holly, my friend, the BBUUC pulpit is yours.
Good morning. Sorry I cried a little bit, so when we were chatting this morning, I believe I was talking to Pam, and she said she missed singing because she had to sit the whole time. So I want to ask all of you, go ahead and stand up for a minute and wiggle a little bit. And then when you're ready, just sit back down. Some movement. I get to stand up, you should too. I'm a terribly wiggly creature. It is so wonderful to be here. It is terrifying to be here also, because those of you who know Reverend Elizabeth Teal, she was the best storyteller I've ever met. And so to speak up here, I would think that you would have the expectation that I would be somewhere near as good as she is, and I don't know that that's true, but I'm give it my best shot. You know, intention is such a wonderful theme for January. You know, and I believe it's my intention to be of service. And that was deepened when I was ordained, is why I was here in 2020 when Liz passed. And I call her Liz, and David calls her Lizzie, and other people call her Elizabeth. And I asked her once, which do you prefer? And she says, I prefer all of them because I like the variety. Yeah. And grief work, it found me. You know, I thought I was going to seminary, and when I started seminary was 2009. I lived in Northeast Ohio. Gay weddings were still illegal, and that was my calling. I went to seminary. I'm going to come out of it. That's what I talked about. That's what I planned. That's in seminary. We got to do practice ceremonies, and I officiated a wedding between these two wonderful men, Richard, who was gay, and Vic, who was not gay, who was heterosexual, and married to a woman. And I was a little terrified that perhaps if we practiced marrying, then that would be, you know, including his wife. And so we had to create a little bubble around that. But these two men, with this intention, took it so seriously that they wrote vows that they could keep to each other throughout their whole life as platonic friends. And so I believe overarching my intention to go where I needed to go, to be of service, is how I ended up in Boston, focusing on grief and doing grief rituals, and not in Ohio, officiating gay weddings. And actually 10 and a half years later, I've only officiated one wedding, and that was for my niece and her husband. So I think that there's a big difference between a plan and an intention, and that we get moved where we need to go. And so in May of 2020, I was having a conversation with one of my friends, and I said, you know, I am so glad I don't like to fly because I don't want to get on a plane because of COVID. And a few weeks later, Liz sent me a text that said, I've been sent home on hospice. And my immediate reaction was to pull over, I was at the supermarket, pull over and book a flight to come here. And then I sent a text. I didn't ask first, which isn't like me. I'm not a very pushy person at all. I'm kind of awkward and shy and a little very respectful. And but I booked the ticket and I sent a text to Liz and said, I'm coming. This is when my flight is, but you're my elder. If you don't want me to come, just tell me it's refundable. But I did come. And it worked out really well because I was here when she passed. And it was so fast. Was it 6 days? Yeah, it was 6 days. And that was not at all the intention. I think the doctor said 6 to 8 weeks. So I didn't know that I was coming for her passing. I knew I was coming because I had to be here. And so I believe that having an intention, like the larger overarching intentions of our lives, will put us places that we need to be for our own healing and for other people's healing and to be of service in the world if we let it. And I hope you'll let it. I hope you'll let your light shine into this world. And as you already know, Josh, David, and I all have the same birthday. I'm sure that was planned. No, I'm joking. I knew Liz for 8 years before I knew that they had the same birthday as I did. And last year, so 2020, I was going to come last January, and then none of us were yet vaccinated. And then this year, I'd already been asked to speak when the numbers were rising, and I'm like, here I go again. It's another getting on a plane during a pandemic when I wouldn't otherwise. But I feel like this is the completion of a grief ritual for David and Josh and I around Liz's passing. And I'm so glad to be able to share it with you. I don't know, how many of you actually knew Reverend Elizabeth Teal? Oh, good. That makes me happy. She's one of my favorite people still. So how do we live intentionally with grief? I mean, Chris Jarman's story, wow, that is such a beautiful story. She just did such a great job. And I think talking about it when we're with the kids, when they're little, because we don't really acknowledge grief so much. So talking to them of when they lose small things. I mean, when I was 8, I had a pair of Feety pajamas that I absolutely adored, and I still miss them at sometimes. And then, so what is that? Is that sadness or is that grief? I think now it's sadness, but at the time it was grief. It's grief to grow up. It's a grief to leave every age of class. It's a grief to graduate and leave home. Even though if we're the ones leaving, we think we're gaining our freedom, but it's a grief too. And so I think that I like to think of things as grief instead of sadness because the grieving process allows for movement. And I love movement more than anything, other than being a wiggly human being. I also don't like stuck energy. And what I feel when my clients come to see me is that whether or not they know it, they're coming to see me because of some grief that's stuck in their body, stuck energetically in their body. And so when we're working together, I can feel that. I have a very odd superpower of being able to taste stuck energy in people's bodies, which is not nearly as cool as being able to fly or X-ray vision or anything like that, but that's what I got. And so what I know is that the people who can do a better job of maintenance, of clearing things out, of moving emotion through, are healthier. And so we're gonna do a group ritual at the end, and it's gonna be outside. And I picked outside because of social distancing, not because I'm a northerner and I wanted to make you cold. I thought it'd be warmer here. So I'm sorry that the weather is not quite as normal as the normal. What is it normally like? It's normally warmer, right? Yes, okay. That is good. So living intentionally with grief. I have a poem, and Chris Jarman sent it to me, but I want to read it to you. She said, I'm not going to use this. Maybe you would like to see it. Maybe you would like to read it. And it's a beautiful poem. It's called The Lessons of the Tree by Reverend Aaron R. Payson. They ask, if a tree should fall in the woods and no one is there, does it make a sound? And the answer came, if a tree should fall and no one is there, listen for the cry of the mourning birds who grieve the loss of their nest. They know where the tree lies. They call you to companion them as they search for a place to rest. Listen then for the mourning birds. So I think one of the best ways to live intentionally with grief, for me, is to pick a spot in nature and observe it and go there all the time and watch the changes. Watch the changes of the seasons. Notice when the wind blows down branches. Notice and be in communion with that place and hold space for that, those trees, those birds, those animals. Because what it does is it creates a really big space inside of us to be able to be seen by them, that reflections I think one of the ways that we're a little out of balance in life is that the plants and the animals and the trees used to be more important to us. I think they miss us watching them. I think they miss us paying attention. So that is one of my favorite ways to live intentionally with grief. And trees also are so willing to absorb from us. So you can take, if you can imagine, like based on the story, if you can imagine your heart in a jar, fill it with water and bring it up to your heart. And just imagine that sadness going into the water, that grief, that loss, and then taking it to your favorite tree and spreading that water around the tree and letting the tree absorb that water and transform it. What does the tree do? Grows taller, gives us lovely air back. How you guys doing? You're not making any noise. You okay? So living intentionally with grief, number one, you have to acknowledge it and talk about it. You have to say, I miss this person. I miss this thing. I miss this t-shirt. I miss a time when cell phones didn't ring in services. I miss that there's contention in my family. I miss the way that, I miss civility in our country. There are so many things that I miss. So it's good to practice with the small things. It's good to practice with the small things. And to find communities where you can deal with your grief. There's a wonderful grief group here that Donna Zimmerman runs that I've heard very good things about. And then there's other ways that don't have to be grief groups. You can go to a writing group. You can go to a prayer group. How about a quilting group? How about a game group? Some place that you can talk with the understanding that this is a safe place to say whatever I need to say without directly, it doesn't have to be about grief, to be about grief. So individually, I think journaling is very good. Writing is always one of the best ways to process things, I believe. I am a very big fan of writing. I'm in a wonderful writing group where we're only allowed to receive positive feedback on our writing. And I've been writing a memoir, and it's been more of a therapy than anything else. It's been really wonderful. And creating that outdoor ritual spot, if you can, it can be in your backyard, it can be at a park, someplace that you can go and have that trees or those plants. I think that's a wonderful, wonderful way to transform. Work with the nature, work with what we've been given by God. And you can use your technology to help too, right? So the cell phones are wonderful things. I like to tell people to go to the same place, take a picture, and set your cell phone on vibrate, on silence for 15 minutes, and sit there. And then go back the next week and take a picture, and then keep looking at those pictures. Look at what's different. And look at what's different in you in that time frame. Right? There's so many of these wonderful religious traditions we have that they ask us to read them over and over again. But the scriptures don't change. We do. And what those scriptures mean to us do. Before we go any further, did everyone pick up something on the way in? Everybody have? All right, good. So I want you to get that right now and hold it. Put it in your hands for the rest of the service, please. Oh, poor Sydney, right? Have it at the piano. Yes. I was like, leave it at the piano. Put it back down. So just hold on to these for right now. Bring that up to your heart if that feels better. And take a couple deep breaths. And go ahead and wiggle around in your chair if that feels good. our beloved Thich Nhat Hanh in 2016, when he talked about the idea of his death, said, "Even when the cloud is not there, it continues as snow or rain. It is impossible for the cloud to die. It can become rain or ice, but it cannot become nothing. The cloud does not need to have a soul in order to continue. There's no beginning and no end. I will never die. There will be a dissolution of this body, but that does not mean my death." I was so taken that he chose a cloud and said, the cloud doesn't need to have a soul in order to continue. I thought that was a brilliant idea for a spiritual leader, to say, it doesn't matter if things have a soul. Everything continues. Like that our soul makes it even greater. What a greater opportunity we have to come back and live again, that we have to be recycled than even a cloud does. Take a couple more deep breaths. Hold on to that object. And go back to that wonderful children's story and think about your heart. Is any of it, is all of it in a bottle somewhere? And what would it take to free it? Remember, it's not force. It's love and it's curiosity. It could be a cat that comes and finds you. It could be a child. It could be your own younger self. It could be the wonder when your favorite plant finally blooms. What is that curiosity? What is that youth? Where does that come from? So we're going to leave that right there for now, and then we're going to continue the ritual in a little bit. Blessings. Thank you. Uh-oh, mask. There we go.
We laugh, we cry, we live, we die, we dance, we sing our song. We need to feel there's something here to which we can belong. We need to feel the freedom just to have some time alone. But most of all, we need close friends we can call our very own. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found a need to be together. We have our hearts to give. We have our thoughts to receive. And we believe that sharing is an answer.
Our lives are full of wonder, and our time is very brief. The death of one among us fills us all with pain and grief. But as we live, so shall we die, and when our lives are done, the memories we shared with friends, they will linger on, and we believe in life and in the strength of love, and we have found a place to be together. We have the right to grow. We have the gift to believe that peace within our living is an answer.
We seek elusive answers to the questions of this life.
We seek to put an end to all the waste of human strife.
We search for truth, equality, and blessed peace of mind.
And then we come together here to make sense of what we find. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found a joy being together. And in our search for peace, maybe we'll finally see, even to question truly is an answer.
Take another deep breath in. So hold this object, preferably in your left hand. Bring it up to your heart. Close your eyes. I want you to imagine that you're pouring any resistance, anything that's standing in the way of you being able to have your heart fully in your chest. Imagine that's what's going into this object. Imagine that curious young creature helping you. Imagine your wise old self helping you. Imagine a loved one who's passed on helping you. Take a couple more deep breaths. And then we're going to take this outside to the memorial garden, which is out those doors. So if you don't want to go outside because it's cold or because you don't want to go down the stairs, then that's fine. You can stay in here, but I'd ask that you come to the windows or the doors and look out. And the rest of us, we're going to take our object and place it in a bowl down there. So we're going to add our intention to live with grief, to be able to open up to our grief, to be able to do it in a solitary manner, to be able to accept community support, whatever works for us, which is the beauty of the UU Church, what it is that works for you. And then there's a blue bowl down there. I'm going to go out first, and you can just come down there. You can come and put that object in, and add your blessing to everyone else. So you'll be putting in your way that you're going to release what's blocking you from living intentionally with your grief and give a blessing to help everyone else in this room. So blessings upon each and all of you as you keep your hearts open, as you stand together as community and individually and walk through your grief. Know that you are loved. Know that you are loved. Amen. All right, you may go back inside where it's warm.